That is exactly what they do in fascist governments. Whenever you're a protester, you're actually an enemy of the state, and we arrest you. That's what's going on in Iran right now. They arrested Don Lemon.
Nobody's above the law.
Bill Maher thinks he's making a point, but he's about to get fact-checked by Marjorie Taylor Greene for attempting to defend Don Lemon's actions. Let's get into it.
Not the only really chilling thing. A viral video in Maine, ICE guys taking this woman's picture of her license plate, and she says, "Why are you taking my information down?" This is caught on tape, I guess, because they have the quote. "Because we have a nice little database, and now you're considered a domestic terrorist." That is exactly what they do in fascist governments. Whenever you're a protester, you're actually an enemy of the state, and we arrest you. That's what's going on in Iran right now. They arrested Don Lemon. Somebody went, yes, like good. I don't know. I
didn't hear him.
It's not good to arrest him. I don't, you know.
Well, I'm going to say he violated the FACE Act. He went into a church, disrupted their worship, and then later in an interview compared them to white supremacists. That's not journalism. That's activism. I had an experience with Don Lemon.
But does it warrant getting arrested?
Disrupting a worship service, stopping people's right to worship God, that is violation of the FACE Act. And under the Biden administration, pro-lifers were sent to prison up to 11 years for praying in front of an abortion clinic, and they were convicted under the FACE Act. So I don't think that's journalism. That's not First Amendment, going in and harassing people in the middle of church. And, you know, Don Lemon came to my office with the Tesla takedown guy that organized it, and we had to call Capitol Police.
Okay, but can we just charge him with not cool, man?
Nobody is above the law. Nobody's above the law.
Did you notice how Bill just conveniently ignored what she said about the elderly women who were sent to prison under the Biden administration just for praying outside of those clinics? But he's outraged that Don Lemon was arrested for disrupting prayer and worship, trying to frame Don as some type of political prisoner. I think this right here just goes to show that it's not really about justice or the law. It's always about who they like and who they don't. Even Joy Behar is on The View comparing Don Lemon's simple act of journalism to Eisenhower exposing concentration camps in World War II.
So, I mean, all I can say is it's in the Constitution, the right to protest, and he wasn't even there protesting. He was there as a journalist. Yeah.
Did some reconnaissance on the ground, speaking to an organization there that's gearing up for resistance and protest, or whatever. But these are resistance protesters. They're planning an operation that we're going to follow them on.
Right. And I think they want to use them as some kind of a, an example to intimidate other journalists.
Yeah.
But I was reading something the other day about World War II, when the Americans liberated Dachau after World War II, after the Holocaust. Dwight D. Eisenhower said, take pictures of these concentration camps, because years will go by and people will not believe this happened.
Yeah.
So this administration does not really like somebody like Don Lemon, who has a camera, who has a position like we do in a way, to speak to the people and tell them what really is going on.
What do you think of this?
I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship.
But there were folks who will say,
I have to take care of my flock.
okay, but listen, we live there's a Constitution and the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus, because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world, is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me, though.
We're here to worship Jesus.
Yes.
That's why we're here.
Yes.
Okay, that's why we're here. Okay. That's what we're about.
Don't you think Jesus would be understanding
we're about
and love these folks?
We're about spreading the love of Jesus.
But did you try to talk to them as a Christian?
No one is willing to talk.
Okay.
I have to take care of my church and my family, so I ask that you actually would also leave this building.
You don't want us to chronicle what happened?
Unless you're here to worship.
I'm always worship. I'm a Christian.
We're here to worship.
Yeah.
We're here to worship. Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
God bless Dwight D. Eisenhower and Don Lemon. Yeah. And I would just like to add that I think they've made him more popular than ever.
Don Lemon was dead wrong for what he did, plain and simple. But of course, the mainstream media is going to rush to defend him. It's disgusting, but sadly, it's not surprising at all. And we all know if the roles were reversed, there would be nonstop fabricated outrage, special reports, and nonstop demands for punishment. But when it's someone on their side, the rules suddenly don't apply anymore, and they stop crying about how no one is above the law and start playing the victim. But according to the actual documents, Don Lemon allegedly physically blocked the church entrance and confronted congregants as they tried to leave.
Well, also, I just want to respond because you accused me of mischaracterizing the indictment. This is actually a quote from the indictment that Lemon posted himself at the main door of the church where he confronted some congregants and physically obstructed them as they tried to exit, challenging them with facts about U.S. immigration policy. So that is what the indictment says. I'm not stating whether I agree with that, but that's what the indictment says. So, look,
They also characterized him as intimidating a pastor who he was calmly interviewing. So I think we also have to, the characterization of him conducting journalism is also something to be questioned.
Look, I think there's obviously a lot of journalists in Minneapolis. The notion that they're just randomly targeting somebody because of their politics or their race is a little unfair. They, if you read the indictment, are going after him because they think that he acted more as a protester than a journalist. But again, I think we need to be really careful when it comes to freedom of the press.
I think what makes this entire situation so frustrating is not just the incident itself, but the media's reaction to it. Because once again, we're seeing the same exact pattern play out. There always seems to be one set of rules for one side and a completely different set of rules for everyone else. The party of no one is above the law is the one who always thinks they're above the law. Let's just start with the basic facts here. Don Lemon did not get arrested for just being a journalist. He got arrested for violating the FACE Act. Yes, of course, the First Amendment protects freedom of press, free speech, and the right to protest. But it also protects the free exercise of a religion, and one does not override the other, ever. So that means Don Lemon, journalist or not, doesn't get to walk into a church, a synagogue, a mosque, or any other temple and disrupt the people who are there to pray, and then claim you were just exercising your constitutional right. That is not how the Constitution works. This same law has been used against pro-life protesters for years. But the media sure stayed silent on that. There was no outrage or emotional speeches about fascism and authoritarianism then, and there definitely wasn't any comparison to concentration camps. And it's probably because the people being prosecuted were just ordinary citizens with views the media just doesn't align with. So those arrests were treated as normal or even necessary. But when someone like Don Lemon allegedly violates the same law, suddenly that's what fascists do. And it's the end of democracy as we know it. It's intimidation or an attack on journalism. And Bill Maher's comments are a perfect example of the selective outrage that I'm talking about. He talks about fascist governments and enemies of the state, and compares enforcing law enforcement against someone who disrupted a church service to Iran. But do you remember how under the Biden administration, federal authorities were targeting parents at school board meetings in Virginia, labeling them domestic threats? Just ordinary mom and dads who were concerned about their children. Where was Maher's comparison to fascist regimes then? Exactly. At the end of the day, the principle is very simple. You don't interrupt a place of worship. It doesn't matter what religion it is or what your political views are. It doesn't matter if you're a journalist, an activist, or just some random passerby. We the people have the constitutional right to gather and practice our faith without being harassed or intimidated. And just because you're Don Lemon, that doesn't give you the authority to disrupt a religious service. But that's just how I feel about it. I would really love to know your thoughts on this in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.